cheaply. We have so much to get to. Yeah, absolutely. The Storm 30, the Dolphins 24. These games, of course, when the State of Origin is on, sometimes people complain about the quality. There was plenty. And I guess, Wado, that's a lot to do with the fact there was still quality players on the paddock last night, and they gave us a terrific game.
Yeah, it was a brilliant game. The Dolphins controlled most of it. I thought they were actually going to sneak away for a win there in the end, but they were super impressive again. But again, Melbourne Storm, they're just always in the fight, always in and around the game. And I thought Jahrome Hughes was outstanding. A couple of really big plays that he took advantage of that were, they weren't set plays really. He got the ball and he noticed an opportunity, and a couple of those kicks for Warbeck were unbelievable. But yeah, it was a cracker game. I suppose we're lucky in the sense where there's guys missing. Obviously, the hammer's missing from the Dolphins, and we're fortunate enough to point a guy like Trey Fuller, who's just been superb. And it was a great game of footy.
With those guys like Trey Fuller, because he's not getting a game every week. He's played, 7 or 8 games this season, and each time he's excelled. Will people be able to grab him? Are there, or is he happy, being the fill-in guy?
I would have thought there'd be people looking at him, but fullback's not a position in the NRL that clubs are struggling in. I mean, that's one position where just about every club has a really good fullback. You look at Melbourne; they got 2 in Paps and Fa'alogo.
I'd even argue most clubs actually have 2 really good fullbacks, but you can only one guy can play. So there's always someone waiting in the wings. So,
and as good as he is, I'm not sure he knocks out any of those guys who are fullback at the moment at their current clubs. I mean, even Canberra, they've alternated their fullback, but they've got Chevy Stewart there, and we saw him in the under-19 game. He's unbelievable. You don't want to block his path to first grade. So I think every club, basically, there's not really a place for him to go where he would walk into a team. So he's almost better off staying there. He looks comfortable there, and he's obviously sort of found a home, even if it is only on occasions there. So, Melbourne and the Masters are the close game this season, aren't they? How many close games have they been in? And they always come out on the right side of the ledger. They're just such a good football team under Craig.
Yeah, how many times have they actually been not the best team on the paddock but come away with the 2 points? And again, statistically last week, they did it against the Warriors. They only had 44, 45% of the football. Their completion rates weren't outstanding, but they just stay in the contest long enough they seem to steal away the confidence of the opposition, because the opposition, and it happened again last night in that first half, they were completing at 95% at halftime, the Dolphins. They probably should have been up by 10 points, but the fact that they weren't, they probably went in at halftime thinking, well, it's 18 all. We've been the dominant side. Come out in the second half. Melbourne just put 15 really good minutes together and then end up just breaking the spirit of the Dolphins, who did well to come back in at the end. But Melbourne just do that every week. They just hang in the contest long enough to just, I think, really steal away any momentum from the opposition. And then, Hughes has just been amazing this year at taking those opportunities. He did it last night, as Wado said. Some of those kicks, some of those passes at crucial stages, just owning the big moments. That was the difference in the end. And their scramble defence in the last 10 minutes, because the Dolphins came after him. Pappenhausen, the experience. Bellamy was saying that they were thinking about not playing him because, he's missed a fair bit of football, and Fa'alogo's been doing such a good job. But I think they really made the right call, because I'm not sure if the other young fullback, Fa'alogo, saved some of those tries at the back end. He was exceptional, Pappenhausen, with his positional play.
Yeah, it was a great return from Pappenhausen, but just more on Jahrome Hughes. He's an elite halfback, and I suppose because he's down there in Melbourne, I know everyone certainly respects him and knows the type of player he is, but he just doesn't have that sort of reputation that other halfbacks have. But he has been outstanding the last couple of weeks. Like last week against the Warriors in particular, he was brilliant, and then again last night. And Gerds talks about breaking a team's confidence. When you have a player who's, you're not playing well as a team, or you're not playing as well as you could be as a team, the other team's doing everything right and just probably controlling the game, then all of a sudden 2 opportunities off second phase footy, just has the confidence and the ability to execute a kick to his winger to find 2 long-range tries. The other team, it mentally does break it. I know for me, if I was there, I think we've been almost perfect here. We haven't pulled away. And then Jahrome Hughes just goes bang, bang and just kills us basically in 2 plays. So he's a fantastic player. And again, another player who Craig Bellamy sort of turned into a halfback.
Yeah.
He came in, he was a fullback, he was off the bench, he was a 5'8", and then now he's just an out-and-out elite halfback in our competition.
I reckon what hurts him in terms of, you say people don't really understand how good maybe he is. One, he's in Melbourne. He doesn't play State of Origin. I reckon that hinders him a bit. The other thing is Cameron Munster's normally there beside him, and that sort of takes a bit of the attention off Jahrome. But Munster hasn't been there, and he's been the guy that stood up for them during the past 2-3 months and led them to this succession of wins. And mate, he's as good as, Nathan's obviously the best halfback in the game. He's in that next group. He's maybe at the top of that next group of halfbacks, Jahrome Hughes.
I agree, because I know we don't watch him in State of Origin, but every time he pulls on a New Zealand jersey, he brains us. So I just think, again, I know players in the NRL respect his ability, like for sure. They understand how good he is. I just don't know if maybe it is because he's down in Melbourne, just doesn't have that little extra reputation about him, but he's an out-and-out superstar.
Kid called Wishart came in, Girds, and did very well, didn't he? Again.
Yeah, he's an exceptional talent. Hard to sort of get a gauge on what his best position is, because we've seen him play big games on the wing and in the centres, and I know he came through the system as a dummy half. I like him at 6, though. I reckon there'll be some clubs out there just having a real good look at, who are short, because that is one of, you spoke about fullbacks and how many good fullbacks are around, but, there's not a whole lot of good 5'8s around, and I think this little period, he's shown enough for clubs to come out and say, you could really nail down a spot at 6 at our club, because he's great defensive player, reads the game well, lots of energy, he's physical, he's a good runner of the football, and whenever you hear him speak, he speaks well about the game. So he's a guy that'll start coming up on everyone's radar. And just on Jahrome before we go, I think, when's the last time they won? Look, if you think about Origins, that's one thing, but also finals football, like Jahrome was there. When did they win the comp last? Is it Cam's last year? Was it
2020?
19?
Was it 2020?
20?
Yeah.
And Hughes obviously would have been there at 7, but then he had, Cam and he had Munster, and I don't know, was Billy still playing then or whatever it may have been. So I think that this is really his opportunity to take his side, into a finals campaign and potentially get a premiership. And I think if he does that, not that I don't have any questions about his ability now, but a lot of people out there will probably say until he goes on and takes that team to a premiership, there's still a couple of boxes for him to tick.
Can I ask you, talk about them as a premiership threat, Melbourne? They have conceded a lot of points this year. If you look at their defensive record, it's nowhere near in the realm of Penrith. Even the Bulldogs are a light years ahead of them defensively. It's very, very un-Craig Bellamy like for a side to concede that many points. Does that concern you guys?
Well, yeah, for sure, because I've said it a number of times on this show. Like, you need to have a good defensive record going into finals, because that's what gets tested, and that's how you get results in our competition. But I think their little safety blanket there is they obviously have Craig Bellamy coaching, and he's been there plenty of times before. There's a whole lot of experience still to come back into that team, and again, they've been shuffling the decks a fair bit. I know they've had a lot of injuries, guys in, guys out, and when you don't have that, probably the cohesion as you normally would, that's where your defence suffers from it, because you can't always make the right call or communicate as well as you want to in a game due to fatigue or whatever. So learning what people do inside and out, having those combinations goes a long way in keeping that high quality standard in defence. But yeah, for sure they need to tighten that up if they want to have success at the back end of the year.
I think also they need to probably lose a couple of games. The problem is they keep winning. So you can see Bellamy's frustrated with their defence. They're leaking too many points. But the players are going, well, yeah, but we're still winning footy games, right? So as soon as they lose a couple, I'd imagine Bellyache will be able to just drive those standards just a little bit harder and get the point home, because, when your side's winning, and what have they lost 3 games all year, and you come to them telling them they need to fix up their defence, well, they just keep finding ways to win, so it's probably not helping
ways to score more points than the other team.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, Hughes talked about his kicking game. There was one he got slightly wrong, and everybody loves the foot race. The one he crossed, then Jermaine Osako took hold of that, and that race down the sideline, and Ryan Pappenhausen came across. Up until about the 20-metre line, Osako, who was going to get there easily, the last 10 minutes he was running in thongs, and eventually... it was just one of those classic rugby league chases.
It was Tommy Dearden, wasn't it? Except he just didn't pull it off at the end.
Yeah.
Paps, but that sort of encapsulates who Ryan Papenhuyzen is, right? I mean, he gives you everything he's got every time he gets on a football field. And he's coming back from a pretty serious injury. He missed a lot of footy. I think he'd been out for almost 2 months, Ryan Papenhuyzen, with that broken leg. But he's still got his pace.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just about to say. The one thing out of it all was it was good to see him in full flight.
Yeah.
We're used to seeing him in full flight scoring tries, but to see him open up and try and track down Asako was good. But Asako did exceptionally well there because he tucked in behind his centre and was deep into the in-goal.
Yep.
So he sort of foxed Hughes into that shallow kick across for his winger, and then he was just good enough to take the inside line and time the jump. So it was a hell of a play by the young winger.
Well, you mentioned players have been out for a while. What about Tavita Pangai Jr.? What do we make of his return to the NRL?
Well, it's probably about what you expect, I think. A couple of good moments.
Usually typical Tavita performance.
Yeah.
Some highlight plays.
Flash points. But again, he's coming back. I know he hasn't played too much in the Q Cup. He spent all that time off. It takes a while to get your timing back, to get the rust out and your match fitness. And I think he's only ever going to play that role for Wayne now at this stage in his career. I think that explosiveness off the bench, maybe 10 minutes either side of half time where you put him on late if you're chasing points and you need something dynamic. Once he gets that rust and that timing back, he can do a job there. And again with the Dolphins, they're right into that to the last minute. A couple of opportunities, that one-on-one steal by Lemu early late to give him one last shot. And that team's going brilliant. Considering, Flegler's out, Gilbert hasn't played much footy over the last 18 months, and they're probably their two young firebrand forwards who you build a lot of that momentum and confidence with, that aggression they bring, and they sort of set the tone defensively and how they carry the ball. So for them to just keep ticking it over, the Dolphins, ticking it over. I know they didn't get the result last night, but they were well in that, and they'll take plenty from it.
Yeah, we hear that Wayne Bennett is going to take Ewan Aitken with him to South Sydney. His versatility was on display there. Of course, Jack Bostock was about the third minute in, hit his head on their ground, and he was gone from the game. There was a reshuffle, obviously. Aitken, who had played a lot of centres for the Dragons over the years, he moved out. Herbie Farnworth maybe struggled a little bit on the wing early, but you can see why Wayne might say to you, well, in fact has, I think.
Yeah, 2-year deal. I think he's going to do a 2-year deal at South Sydney, and he'll be a really handy signing for them. He's been a great signing for the Dolphins. He's obviously played back row centre, experienced guy, been around a long time, and South sort of needs some reinforcements, particularly in their forward pack. So, he'll be a good signing for them.
State of Origin 2 at the beautiful Melbourne Cricket Ground next Wednesday. All right, let's see what the state of play is. I guess we should address the elephant in the glass house first. Reedy, for you. Suddenly Reedy, one of his heroes, one of his Queensland idols, Billy Slater, is now his sworn enemy.
I wouldn't go that far.
Wouldn't you?
No.
We were just talking to Billy earlier, and that's how far he went. That's okay. You go as far as you want.
He did put me on show, didn't he?
Well, I
He
don't
had
think...
selective memory, though, didn't he, Billy?
Yeah, for those who don't know, the NRL 360, I'm not going to replay or anything, but if you can just talk us through what happened. It was the question after Michael Maguire had said the Glass House's statement that had to be asked.
Yeah.
Was it voted on that you would be the person to ask it?
I don't think I was... My memory is that I specifically said before the show, I'm not asking that question. And then we were sitting there, I think someone pointed at it and pointed at me, and I went, I don't care. Oh, I'm happy to ask it. I just didn't really want to at the time. And I obviously asked Billy about Madge's reference to glass houses in terms of a lot of people thought that was directed at Billy because of some comments he made, not directly after the game. He made them on the footy show a few days later.
Yeah, about the Swaley tackle not being a good look and not, parents wouldn't like
parents
that.
Wouldn't like to see it, and it'll... and Billy obviously denied saying anything. And I went. He said, I didn't say anything after the game. And I went, well, no. A few days after the game, Billy went, no. You better check what I said. And at the time, I actually didn't have his quotes on me to go, well, here's what you said, Billy. Yeah. So I just sort of let it go.
Yeah, mate, he's preparing.
Well, I didn't think I'd be asking the question, so I didn't have the quotes on me. But I sent Billy a text message. I looked him up because it was a pre-record.
Yeah.
I had a bit of time after the interview to check the quotes, and I looked them up, and I actually copied them, put them in a text message and sent them to Billy and said, I think that this is what Madge was referring to, Billy.
Yeah.
He didn't reply to me. But he's fine. That's all fun and games. I'm glad they've spiced it up a bit. At least they've, it's very un-Madge-like because that's not Madge's go to get involved in little slanging matches. I mean, that's not really his style, but, he was genuinely annoyed by
Yeah, I think
the comments that were said after the game about Joe Suaalii, and even the Nate Miles stuff where he attacked Joe Suaalii as he walked off the field. Madge was genuinely annoyed by that, and he clearly wanted out there that he was annoyed by it. But yeah, Billy put me on show.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of it's a bit of blood in the game right now.
Yeah.
The series is on the line. The Queensland have gone one up, so there's a bit more feeling. It's all rosy before game one, and there's not a result. Everyone's just hoping that things go their way. But now that we've played a game and the game panned out the way it did, there's obviously a bit going on. And I just think Billy didn't say anything after the game because he's in his Queensland shirt there. He's a part of that Queensland organisation. I think a few days later, despite still being the Queensland coach, he's on that footy show as a Channel 9 panellist. He has his footy show head on and he's making comments. And then when you got a hold of him, he was back in the camp. He was back with that Queensland head on. So I don't know whether there was a bit of gamesmanship there, and he was a bit fired up defending himself. But I get where they're both coming from. Like Madge, obviously, we all know. We sat here the other week joking around Billy's career and the things they changed the rules around shoulder charges in the corner and leading with your feet and your knees. Like that's, Billy had a few incidents like that, and then when you get invested in a game like this where you care so much and the emotions are high, the rivalry starts to come out, and I don't mind. I love it. It's what it's about.
But when you say that, a bit going on, and there is, but is that convected almost for the media, for the fans? Because Ryan Girdler, you'd imagine that what the players do, they're ready to play a state of origin no matter what this outside noise is, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, but I think there'll be a little bit of buy-in from the players now too, that it's become a little bit more personal. I mean, what I think the players will be upset about is what happened with Suaalii when he was walking off with sideline officials. I mean, that'll tick them off. They'll there's things that are that happen at Origin between the coaches, and people bring up previous rivalries between certain players that don't get on or whatever. But this happened in the series, and I don't think the players will be happy about that, and they'll draw a little bit from that. Plus, they've got some probably guys in there now that New South Wales will take a bit of more confidence probably into this first game. They had a lot of debutants in the second game. They had a lot of debutants in that first game, but they've brought big personalities like the Murrays, like the Mitchells into the side, and I think on the back of that, they will feed into all of that narrative that's going around now to make it a little bit more personal, which just makes the concept even better.
I think they'd love the idea that Madge is sticking up for them. You've got to remember, Madge has a relationship with Billy. He coached him for 5 years in Melbourne when he was an assistant coach at the Storm. Frank Panissi's in camp with New South Wales. He's the Melbourne head of football. So these guys know Billy. They know him really well. So to see Madge come out and fire a few shots across Billy's bow, I think those guys would look at that, the guys in camp, you know better than me, and they'd look at that and go, right, this bloke's in our corner. He's sticking up for us.
Yeah, well, I love it. Like I said, I get where Billy's coming from and playing the straight bat and not giving much away. But I love Madge coming out and defending Joe, because there were a few things that were probably, not the right thing, especially around the young kid walking off into the sheds. And if people had their times over, I doubt they'd do that again. But that's what Origin brings out in everyone. It's just, again, the emotion. Everyone cares so much about it. You can't help but feel invested in it. And when you feel slighted or you feel like the other party hasn't done the right thing by you, well, you sort of get your back up and go, well, it's on. Like, this is what it does for the game, and it does for our state.
And of course, Gordy, we just went the drive-by shooting of saying that Billy Slater knows what it's like to be targeted, whereas Madge's played with him. People didn't know he's on the field. It was just a little slight, nasty one as well from Gordy, who does love it, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
He does love it. All right, what do you've mentioned, Gerds, some of those changes. What did you make of the team as it heads into that game next Wednesday?
Well, I don't think there was really any surprises, Tone. Seeing Cam Murray come back into the side, I thought he's kind of one of the first guys picked if he's fit on a regular basis. So I love having him back in the jersey there somewhere. I'm a fan of Latrell coming back in. I thought that was, with the form over the last couple of weeks, I don't think his form's as good as everyone's actually talking about. Last week he was okay, but Latrell doesn't have to do a lot these days for everyone to be raving about a performance, but he'll be bringing a fair bit of confidence in his real presence out there. And I think, we struggled a little bit. And look, it's really hard to judge any of the content that we get out of game one, but there were some opportunities there that we created in game one, even with 12 men, that we didn't take. We couldn't convert, and I think he'll give the guy some confidence that he'll get the job done in certain areas of the field. I think his mindset's got to be about bringing the ball out of the back, though. That's what the back five are for with the side that Madge has picked. It's about yardage for them and making sure that they get those carries in order before they worry about doing the other stuff at the other end of the field. And the only one that I really am a little bit confused about, boys, to be honest, is Appy. And I think Robson did a really good job in game one. It was really tough conditions given what he had to go through and played big minutes. But and I know that Madge wants the halves to play. He wants to play off the deck. But if you've got a big back five going through the middle trying to generate momentum like the game plan is, and then you've got a dummy half in there like an Appy Coruscant that can take advantage of those situations. I think it might benefit because you need to be tough, you need to be resilient. We get all that. You need line speed, good defence, but you also need players that can create opportunities because you don't get many of those at Origin, and Appy's one of those guys. So that's the only question I would have, that they couldn't fit him in there somewhere. But I also like Watson coming in. I like what he's done for the Roosters this year. He's very versatile. So no surprises. Moses is back in there. I'm excited. I think they go down there and I think they can find a way to get it done.
As the token Queenslander on this panel, can I play a little bit of devil's advocate?
Off you go.
Okay. So the Cam Murray, I understand Cam Murray coming back, but he's one game back and he's named in the starting side. Do you expect him to start? Realistically, do you think he'll start, or maybe they'll flip?
Yeah, I think
him and Isaiah Yeo.
I can think he starts because, like Isaiah Yeo again, you're comfortable with him on the bench. He can play 80 minutes almost. Isaiah Yeo in the middle. So if Cam does blow out, he needs to change. Or you just put Isaiah Yeo on, and you play him as many minutes as you can, and you get Cam back on, however the game pans out when you need him. So I'm confident that. And Cam's not the type of guy you worry about his fitness or his conditioning because he's just one of those players and athletes who's always in tip-top shape. Yep. So, yeah, I got no hesitation about starting Cam.
Can I ask you this one? Were you surprised Cam McInnes got rissoled, given he was held up as the
rissoled's
beacon?
A strong word.
Sorry, sacked. Sorry. Given he was basically the
punted, I think,
embodiment of the Michael Maguire philosophy of...
No, well, I think you need to...
And he had one game, he didn't miss a tackle, he made 40 odd or something, 32 was it, and got flicked.
I don't think he flicks the right word. I think there's guys. Cam Murray wasn't available for selection.
What word would you
use? He's still in the squad.
Let's find this word.
He's still in the squad. He's a part of the...
He's not, though. He's not in the team.
You want to go down the Selwyn Cobbo track, mate? You Queenslanders?
He's dealing with some injuries.
Oh, yes. Cam's dealing with some injuries too, mate. You've seen the way he plays. He's banged up every week.
Boys, I'm just asking
You can't have Murray, Watson and McInnes all in the same side. You can't do it. You can't have Murray, Watson and McInnes all in the same side. It just doesn't make any sense. You need Watson for a little bit more cover. Cam Murray's kind of one of the first guys you pick, so I don't think there's really any surprises.
Okay.
And he's still in and around the team. He's 18th, 19th man. He's training with the squad. I'm confident in his team.
Queensland then still overwhelming favourites of this game?
Never. Queensland aren't favourites, are they?
Can we get to the bottom of the Selwyn Cobbo injury? Can you do some research on that?
He's been playing with painkillers,
But a lot of people
I think he's gone back to Cherbourg as well, hasn't he? That was reported.
Family.
He's had he's obviously missing home a little bit, so he's going through some stuff, Selwyn. Young fella, and Billy's giving him a bit of time and space.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just coincides with the fact that the Capewell comes back.
Yes, and I believe that Capewell would have been potentially in the side prior to, in Origin 1 if he hadn't had an injury.
But Cam Murray wouldn't have been.
We've had a little look at New South Wales and the team they've assembled. Reedy, is there any breaking news out of Queensland, or is it just business as usual? They've had a couple of injuries, a couple of changes to their side.
Yeah, a couple of blokes out, obviously. Selwyn Cobbo and Jermaine Hopgood, Felice Kafusi and Kirk Capewell back in the team, so a couple of old stages. No real news, so no Harry Grant stomach bugs this campaign. It's all gone very smoothly, apart from Billy being a bit tetchy at times.
Yes,
which apart from that, it's been very good.
Liam Martin. Now, he hasn't, at the beginning of the week, the campaign, he was sitting out training with turf toe, which is, I understand, an incredibly painful condition.
Yeah, it's annoying to train with. Like, you can handle the pain, but it limits the way you run, or it alters the way you run. And you can definitely notice it when you're out there. You put your footy boots on. When you get up on your toes and sort of get going, you can handle it. But then when your deceleration, often or not, if you always got an injury, it gets hit every time at training. So no doubt he gets stepped on a few times while he's training. But I think Liam Martin, he'd cut that toe off to play Origin. So come Wednesday night, he'll be ready to go.
It's interesting because Jermaine Hopgood's not playing, apparently because of a back problem that he picked up when Liam Martin smashed him in Origin. Remember the big tackle Liam Martin put on him in Origin 1?
Tackles, that one.
I think that's contributed to him missing Origin 2, and that was, 3 weeks ago now, or 3 weeks by the time Origin comes around.
Would you cut off any digits? And kids that don't say this, but suppose this is a positive thing to play Origin? Well, you've got one that
you've got one. I probably cut off anyway. But yeah, mate, everyone's banged up this time of year. Like, none of those boys in there would be 100% fit. The NRL is just very rarely do you get through unscathed for a certain amount of time. We're right in the thick of it now with the season, and most of those guys played in Origin. They're backing up for their club, and now they're getting ready to play again. So there'll be all sorts of issues being managed by those players. But come Wednesday night, again, you don't need much motivation. It's not a game you struggle to get up for. It's just about getting out there and executing when the lights are on.
Wado's got a bit of a perspiration sheen up from the chili rice. So just let you know,
my mouth is very salivary too. I think
he's got plenty of forehead to show the sweat on as well.
The chef must have knew it was your birthday, Tony, so he spiced it right up for us today.
He did spice it up. In terms of Queensland, though, Girds, is there? I mean, it's state of origin, as you just said. Nothing. That's why you're up. If you're a player. But is there any chance that Queensland knows Suncorp Stadium awaits for the decider? They go to Melbourne where their record isn't that sensational. That there could be, complacency is a bad word to use about Origin, but could that creep in at all?
Always, Tony. It's always a factor in game two. Whoever's got game one has that luxury. And I'm not saying that it's a conscious thing. And Billy will be obviously making sure that his players have an awareness around it. But I don't know, maybe it's a subconscious thing that at some point during the contest, it just might come in that, we've got game three to fall back. It's at home. So hopefully New South Wales can get something out of that. But just in relation to the Queensland changes, Billy's always done things on intuition, hasn't he? Like what he did last week with Selwyn Cobrad. Didn't make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but he just intuitively thought, I want to have cover for these certain things. He doesn't listen to the outside noise. He doesn't really care what anyone else thinks. And that's exactly what he's done again here with Capewell, like a great guy to have on your bench. Felt like Selwyn probably needed a rest. I think we all sometimes forget how young Selwyn is and how much he's already been through in his young career and the way that he plays. He's such a physical guy. So I think the whole Capewell thing works. Kafusi, again, just, did some really good things on the back of Hopgood not being available. So no real surprises there for me. I mean, Selwyn was a little bit of a surprise, but after kind of having a bit of a think about it and seeing that Capewell was available and what he brings and the cover that he provides for that team, it all makes sense. And yeah, like Brett White said, I mean, the interesting thing about what to expect with Queensland is Walsh didn't play game one. He was there for 7 minutes. So I know Hammer did a great job, but he obviously brings a different dimension with the way that he plays. So I think they'll be pretty excited too to get him back and bring these new guys in and going down there just trying to tie up the series.
It's a huge night for Mitch Moses. I mean, he's had a few chances at Origin level and he's sort of shown he belongs without really being commanding, I guess. But this is his team, very much his team going down to Melbourne. And it's interesting, right? Nathan Cleary's due back round 19, 3 weeks away. Potentially.
I thought we were talking about Queensland now.
Oh, sorry, I'm just coming back to New South Wales.
No, you're just trying to heat pressure on, playmakers from New South Wales.
No, I'm just asking.
We actually did New South Wales. You had an opportunity at the start of the show.
We're now talking about I want to throw
Queensland.
a little curly one at you.
Yeah. We're talking about Queensland.
Well, okay, can I ask you this question? If it goes to Suncorp deciding game and Nathan Cleary is available,
don't have to think about
it. Do you pick him without playing a game?
To do that means that New South Wales would have won. So you'd assume that Mitch Moses would.
It's a big if, yeah. No, but before the series started, the halves would have been, my understanding, Moses and Cleary.
Yep.
So it doesn't mean Mitch goes.
We're talking too many hypotheticals at the moment, just in case Cleary gets back and just in case he's available.
You don't like we love hypotheticals in the media, though.
Tell us about the Queensland side, Reedy.
Well, what
are your concerns? Were you surprised at the changes? What's the talk in Queensland?
Well, I think people were caught off guard by Cobbo, but that's been explained, right? He's carrying injuries and he's been taking pain. I'm sure there's an element of that to the story, but I'm sure there's other issues that have also been reported that he's obviously gone home and he's dealing with some homesickness and so on. So I understand why Billy's left him out.
Do you think if Capewell was fit and available for game one,
I think he would have been there.
He would have been there anyway instead of Cobbo, because he's the ready-made, that bench utility that you're looking for, because he'll plan to play on an edge or in the middle, but he's also shown that he can play in the outside backs, and he's done a job there for Queensland before. I think he might have even started at centre one game for Queensland. So he's sort of the ideal guy you have on your bench. So, again, we're talking about Cam Murray and Cam McInnes sort of situation. Maybe if Capewell fits game one, Cobbo doesn't get that bench spot anyway.
Yeah, I think he would have been there before game one, definitely. But there's a couple of interesting personal battles, I reckon, in that game. Like Val Holmes up against Latrell's a really interesting clash for me, because Val hasn't had a great year. He struggled a bit at times this year.
He was brilliant in game one, but he was back to his best,
But, Latrell's he's a handful. And if they get him early ball and he gets one-on-one with Val's probably going to need some help there. So that's an intriguing personal battle for me.
Reedy, can I ask you a question? I mean, everyone's talking about...
wow.
Everyone's
I've
talking
never had
about
so many questions.
New South Wales and the way that they performed, early parts of that second half. Do they take some confidence out of that? The way that I look at it is, we got dusted up by 28 points in the end. Do you think that Queensland played within themselves in game one when they knew that they obviously had that advantage and that it would show at the back end of the game? Do you think they've got a few more gears to go up for Melbourne?
I've got no doubt they do, guys. Reece Walsh playing the entire game immediately takes him up at least another gear. You're right. I think people have underestimated or they've almost forgotten about losing Reece Walsh for 73 minutes of that football game. They would have done so much work during the lead up to that game around Reece Walsh, how to use him, how to get him isolated against the New South Wales defenders, and it all went out the window after 7 minutes. So, I think you've got that untapped attacking potential of Reece that it's going to add another dimension completely to that Queensland attack in game two.
John Singleton has come out and said that he will throw some cash at the issue in terms of expansion in the NRL in Perth, so long it is as it is the Jets. Now, of course, it has always been that, most recently, the North Sydney Bears would be the ones who would get that Perth gig. It'd be so sad for the Bears if they didn't. But Newtown, another foundation club, and Singer throwing money on it. How tempting will that be for Peter V'landys?
Look, I think Peter's been pretty outspoken, pretty public in saying that they want the Bears back. So, look, Singer's got a lot of money, right? And he's going to throw a lot of money at the Western Australian government to be part of that bid. But the NRL's clear preference, is for it to be the Bears if there is a joint venture. So, I think the issue at the moment is I think the Bears want too much, and that's causing negotiations aren't progressing as smoothly as perhaps people hoped, and that's allowed the Jets in the background to work away at the Western Australian government and the Western
Australian government has expressed a preference for the Jets.
Yes. Well, their preference, I believe, is to go alone. That's their first preference.
Yeah.
That's probably not going to happen. The second preference is the Jets, because Singer's got a lot of money, and he's got some people in alongside him who are willing to be part of that bid team, armed with a lot of cash.
And he says that it is the Perth Jets, this is Singer saying, and Henson Park and Newtown, that's all yesterday, and he's looking to tomorrow.
But the great issue is with the Bears, they bring the Jets. Not many people remember the Jets, right? Not many modern people of our era. Tony, you and I are a bit different, but Wade, you remember the Jaggers, remember the Jets, right?
I was there at their last grand final in 81, I think it was.
Whilst the Bears have got this sleeping giant of a supporter base, but the NRL wants to awaken. And they've also got the brand. It's a big brand. And and the broadcasters, crucially, the broadcasters would love the Bears back, because you bring the Bears back, again, you awaken that supporter base. So this is the issue at the moment. This is the issue the NRL's got to work through with WA to try and get this, work this out, basically.
All right, Damien Cook. Now he signed to return to the Dragons. Of course, he was a Dragons junior, made his first grade debut with the Dragons. He had I think it's a 2-year contract that he signed with the Dragons. Yeah. What do you make? Is that a good deal for him? He wanted to stay at South Sydney, let's be honest. But is it a good thing first for the Dragons to have some of his experience and class lob?
I think it never hurts having someone there with experience who's been around the game for a long time, has seen the success at South Sydney or almost success, and actually has seen the other side of it too. So he knows the hard times and what it looks like when it's not going right. And it's always great to have that experience in the locker room, because you can pass that on to the younger guys. You have a good influence on the playing group, and I think it's a little win for the Dragons. And they've been in for a lot of players. Shane Flanagan obviously still trying to shape that roster to his liking, and just to get a signing, some positive news. He's a likeable guy, Cookie. He's got a lot of respect among the players in the NRL. So I think it's a positive move for the Dragons.
Reedy, what does that mean for the Rabbits though? Mamazoulis is obviously there, but does that look like someone might come in over the top of him? Someone like a Marshall King?
No, he's extended up at the Dolphins now, Gerds. I think it means Mamazoulis is their hooker moving forward. I think they want to fix up other areas of that footy club, particularly their middles. They've obviously been linked with Royce Hunt. They've signed Ewan Aiken. I think the forward pack's an issue for Wayne, and that's why he's allowed Cookie to go, because Cookie's on a pretty significant amount of money, and it frees up cash for them to make moves elsewhere. So, I think it's a good move for Cookie too. Gets another year, and he hasn't left there on bad terms. Like South will have, they'll have a position for him potentially when his career's over. I think they've made that pretty clear to him. So, he hasn't left on bad terms. He gets another year earning really good money at a club that's sort of on the rise. You can help rebuild them. I mean, he played footy there. He's a junior there from memory. So, I think it's good for both parties, to be honest.
Well, the other thing too, on just a side note, like Cookie lives in Cronulla, Benny Hunt lives in Cronulla. Yeah. A lot of those Dragon boys do live in and around Cronulla. So, he'll fit seamlessly into that club.
The only issue is, Wade, you raised it. Little's been really good this year for them. And it sort of blocks the path to going and getting potentially a young hooker. If they decide Little's not the man moving forward, there was talk about Kyle Flanagan
at the start.
moving to hooker.
Flanagan's playing
played really
great
well
footy
in
the halves. So I'd imagine he'll stay there. But I'm uncertain on where Little fits into that, because Cook's obviously coming to start at hooker, and Little's an established hooker as well. So I don't know how he would feel about taking that backward step and maybe being just a bench hooker or, a reserve really. So that's a situation that Shane Flanagan will have to manage. But that's what he does so well. He manages pretty well, and I don't think he wouldn't drag Little along. He'd even let him know. He would let him know what his plan is. Before he even made this Damien Cook signing, Little would have been kept
abreast of what's going on.
100%.
But that's the thing. It seems so tricky to me in terms of coaching, what some of the things you have to do, because there are all these players have got egos, they've got families, they've got careers they're thinking about. When this is, it's out there, this is happening, and your coach is saying that, talking about next year, it's like you're being cheated on right out in the open. How difficult is it for those guys to continue just to go, yep, and focus on their performance and not let that affect them?
Well, I think it's up to the coach to be upfront and honest. And I'd say one of the probably necessary skills you have to have as a head coach and a first grade coach, if you want to have longevity in this game, is the ability to have a tough conversation. And they're not nice conversations, particularly when you said you have a relationship with this guy or girl now in the team, and you need to change the roster. You need to move the roster on, because the club comes first and your plan doesn't fit with that player anymore. So ideally, you have to do it with respect, and you have to let that player know what your plans are before they happen, because if it happens and they're not informed, they get the shits. If you tell them one thing and it doesn't come through, well, then they could be a bit offside as well. So it's always hard to manage your situation, and that's why the great coaches are so good and they can hang around for so long, because not only can they coach the football, but they can keep the playing squad happy and get them all pulling into one direction.